Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to Breakfast with Sergio. I'm super excited to be here with you today because I have with me a good guest. We have Nicole Woodruff. She's joining us all the way from Utah. And we're going to talk about the show that she has right now at 33 Contemporary Gallery called the Paresthesia Perspective. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be a great conversation. Well, hi, Nicole. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for joining us here in Breakfast with Sergio and also the Artist Next Level podcast. We're doing kind of a combo of both today. So happy to chat with you about this show that we have up right now, 33 Contemporary Gallery through RC Exclusive. And, it's a fabulous show. It just opened this month of April. And, there's a lot to talk about the work in the show, your story, and everything else. So we're looking forward to have this conversation. We haven't met in person that I can remember, right?
No.
So I think it's gonna be fun, as I get to know you and vice versa. So you have a very interesting exhibition that's called the Paresthesia Perspective, and it's a collection of paintings which we have the fortune to see some of them in the back there, right behind you. We're gonna see more as we have this conversation. And for our friends who are listening to the podcast, maybe we'll describe them a little bit as we go as well, and we'll invite them, of course, to come and check them out on rc.net, where we have the whole exhibition going on right now. But as we start kind of delving into the exhibition itself, tell me a little bit, about when did you start planning this body of work? How long, since you started with the first painting? Before we talk about the topic, just as an overall exhibit.
Okay, so this exhibit, I started the body of work about 6 months ago when I was given the solo show. I had it in the works. I had a couple pieces, but most of this work has been created in the past 6 months.
So you've been super busy.
Yes, I have been very busy, but it's been very good to work with the deadline and get so much work done. So
let's talk a little bit about, the topic, the paresthesia. Tell us a little bit about what that is for friends who maybe don't know what it was. I wasn't really aware of that until I actually came to find out about your show and started to look more into it. So tell me a little bit about what that is and how that influences the body of work that you have.
Okay, so paresthesia is pretty much a fancy way of saying an odd sensation on your skin. So an easy way to explain it that everyone can understand is that feeling of when your foot falls asleep and you get that tingling, burning, uncomfortable feeling. That is a form of paresthesia. There's lots of different forms and different intensities. The interesting thing with paresthesia is that it's a symptom of something. It's not a diagnosis. So unless you know what is causing it, there's no controlling it. So my experience with paresthesia stems back about 15 years. I contracted Lyme disease at some point as a child, and I didn't know where from. I still don't know, but symptoms kicked in around age 18 for me, and unbeknownst to me and my parents, because Lyme disease really is not that common here in Utah. I went undiagnosed and misdiagnosed for 15 years. And so in that time when my body was kind of deteriorating, it affected me mentally. And so this show really was about the connection between these physical experiences we go through, whatever they may be, right? And how they affect us psychologically and mentally. And then how we kind of cope with that and how it really alters our perspective on life. For me, this experience has changed how I see the world, really. And so that's really where the Paresthesia Perspective title came from, and my ideas behind the work.
Very cool. And is that, as you were, planning the exhibition, is this the first time in which you approach the subject matter as a kind of a body of work, or is something that you had done before?
No, this was the first time. I had made a couple paintings. The first painting I ever did with this at all was the Oddities and Paresthesia one. That was my first painting. And that came about a year after I was diagnosed. And I was kind of able to wrap my head around it. And in a way, it was almost therapy and art coming together, and able to speak of it. And that spurred the idea. And I came up with this body of work. Yeah. That was the first piece.
Yeah, and I feel, I had a situation in which I think it was about 10 years ago, one day I was driving and all of a sudden my head started spinning. I had never experienced vertigo. And since then, now I've suffered from vertigo. It comes and goes. So,
Oh,
and I think it's kind of like that idea of like, you don't never know when an episode is going to come in, right? Like something unknown can trigger it. And I've done paintings related to that when it's kind of like similar way in which I realized, wait a minute, so this is something that I'm going to have to deal with. It's not like the flu that comes and goes, but uh, there are certain flags that, or triggers or warning lights that I need to be aware of. And I did a couple of paintings about that. And actually that kind of, as you said, kind of in a pedagogic way, right? Did I say it right? I don't know. But kind of helped me to deal a little bit with that and come to terms and understanding. And every time I look at that painting, it's, even in a positive way, reminds me that, this is something that it's part of my reality, right? And I even though I cannot control it fully, I can do my part and take care of myself as much as I can. And but this is something that is part of who I am, and there's no shame in that. There's nothing to be afraid of. In that, I carry that with me, and just have to accept that.
exactly. That is, yes, exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you don't always know what it's coming. How am I gonna live in fear of it? Am I gonna accept it? How has this changed me? That's exactly what I was trying to say throughout all my work, actually.
No, and I got that. As I'm looking at some of the pieces, for example, there's one piece that's called Centered, right? And in some of the pieces, like Lost and Found Edges, for example, there's like a multiplicity of images, almost like when you have like, when I don't put my glasses on, right? I have like the whole, tell me a little bit about, multiplicity of the figure on those pieces.
Okay, so those two pieces were actually the last two pieces of my show, and that I worked on for the show. And they really were about letting go of the sense of control that I cannot control, right? So like, I had to let go of my preconceived idea of like, this is my life and this is how it will be, because there are some things we can't control, and not that I enjoy all of them, right. But letting myself reform, letting myself change my idea, basically getting comfortable with the idea of change, right? Like, and also like the Centered, for me, I really like that it was kind of a quiet moment, and the figure is sitting there in contemplation and hopefully optimism, trying to center herself and gain control of what she can control and let go of what she cannot. And so that piece was very special to me, because it was kind of the ending, and it was a good note to end the.
Oh, okay. Now tell me about also the models that you use for the portraits. Were these self-portraits in some of them? Were these people that you knew? Tell me a little bit about how did you went about that?
Okay, most of them are self-portraits. As you know, the series was about myself in a lot of ways, but I also chose to use my sister, who's been not just because she was willing to pose for me, which is very nice, but she has always been a support system for me. And so to include her in the work, I felt was appropriate, because she understood what it was truly about and what my message was. And I just felt like it was more important to have someone who has been there through it all with me than someone who had not. So it was important to me to have her there. And so I did use her for many of them as well. And although the figures are myself and my sister, I feel like the theme's really universal, though, in a sense of we all have things we go through, whatever they may be, and they all affect us for one way or another,
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. I think, sometimes we judge what we see on a little screen on how a person is or looks. We don't know the behind the scenes of all of us, right? And
Yes.
I think for you as an artist to come out this way and say, hey, this is something that is a reality, and maybe there may be other people suffering for this or other things, I think it gives us all permission to accept who we are as well, and to say, yeah, you know what, life is not perfect. But there's one specific painting that to me stands out in the show, which is one of my favorite pieces to where all we see is the hands. It's called coping skills. And I love when an artist kind of approaches a topic, an idea, and chooses just to use the hands. So you don't have the visual expression of the eyes or the mouth, which tell us a lot on how a person looks like, even if we only see part of the face. But with the hands, it gives you a whole other reading, and something that I particularly enjoy when an artist does that. And I think you have done that in this series. Tell me a little bit about this piece called Coping Skills. There's another one too, Oddities of Paresthesia, that also we see part of the body and the hands. But this one, Coping Skills, is like the hands is the main protagonist of what's happening in the painting. Tell me about the choice of only working with the hands for that particular piece.
Okay, so the hands, as you know, are very expressive, right? It's almost like sometimes I feel like a hand is just as expressive as a face, and it's a portrait all on its own. And the coping skills, I use the hands to kind of express like the discomfort without seeing the face, right? But also there's a rubber band that's stretched across the fingers. And for me, I feel like I had to create coping skills, right? Like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to deal with it. I just knew I had to get through it somehow. So I would use this rubber band when I was too pulled into myself or too physically just uncomfortable. And I would kind of flick it. Like I would kind of flick my finger, not so like it was painful. I wasn't like hurting myself, but it would bring me out of myself and try to help me focus on the world around me, and opposed to just internalizing things. Cause I tend to do that. So it kind of would just remind me there are other sensations, there are other feelings. This is not all encompassing. And it was my coping skill. As we all create, and I talk to other people. Sometimes the interesting thing with some of these pieces, as I open up, other people start to open up about the things they do to help them. And we really are, our situations are also different, but yet we have so many similarities. Everyone has their own things going on, their own coping skills. And it's really interesting.
No, I love that. And, as you're talking about that, my coping skill is something like this. It's just a little dot on a piece of paper, right? When I need, if I'm starting to feel a little kind of the DC edge, this kind of helps me to focus on something and just look at it, relax, and then brings me back to centeredness, and yeah, we all have those dynamics, as we go through different things in life, where we need to create them or invent them or maybe appropriate them from somebody else that we heard and we tried. And, that's why also that piece really pulled my attention, the title and what's happening there with the hands are so interesting as well. So thank you, Nicole, again for bringing us up to speed on what you're doing right now. Beautiful exhibition. We want to invite all our friends to come and check it out. Go to artsy.net, search for 33 Contemporary Gallery. Right there in the page where the gallery side, you will see shows, and if you click on shows, you will see a Nicoles exhibition right now up on Artsy as an exclusive show there for the whole month of April. So go check them out. And where can our friends also find you, Nicole, on social media, particularly Instagram, and also online?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at woodruff.nicole.art. My website is NicoleWoodruffFineArt.com. And I'm also on TikTok at Nicole Woodruff Paints.
Excellent. You're on TikTok. Super. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us today. And we look forward to continue to seeing more of your great work, not only on social media, but also we hopefully very soon in exhibitions as well, as the world continues to reopen. So thank you, Nicole. Have a great day. And to all our friends. Yes, absolutely. To all our friends, if you enjoyed this conversation, do us a big favor. Nicole and I will be very, very happy if before you go, you click on that little share button that you have there, and also share it with all your friends as well. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.